Okay, we are back with part 6 of this week's reading of Genesis chapter 11 through 23. This is a huge section that we're reading also, and this is taken from the Messianic Jewish Family Bible Tree of Life Version, TLV, and this is for Monday, February 3rd, 2020. And as you can tell, I'm taping this live. There's no rehearsal, so all the little bloopers and things that are happening, they're just happening naturally, as if I was actually facing you and teaching you. It's just I'm just free flowing and going through this, and as the Holy Spirit is leading. But there are little background noises like my phone being beeping, and I'm losing my voice, and I did have to pause at that point because you don't want to hear me cough. So anyway, we're going to move into chapter 22, the binding of Isaac. Now it was after these things that God tested Abraham. He said to him, Abraham, Hineni, he said, and Hineni in Hebrew means here am I, or here I am. Then he said, take your son, your only son whom you love, Isaac, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains about which I will tell you. So Abraham got up early in the morning, saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son. He split wood for the burnt offering, and got up and went to the place about which God had told him. On the 3rd day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place from a distance. Abraham said to his young men, sit yourselves down here with the donkey. As for me and the young man, we'll go over there, worship, and return to you. Then Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and put it on Isaac, his son. In his hand he took the fire and the knife, so the 2 of them walked on together. Then Isaac said to Abraham his father, my father. Then he said, here I am, my son. He said, look, here's the fire and the wood, but where's the lamb for a burnt offering? Abraham said, God will provide for himself a lamb for a burnt offering, my son. The 2 of them walked on together. Then they came to the place about which God had told him. And Abraham built the altar there, laid out the wood, bound up Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. Then Abraham reached out his hand and took the knife to slaughter his son. But the angel of Adonai called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Hineni, here am I. Then he said, do not reach out your hand against the young man. Do nothing to him at all. For now I know that you are one who fears God. You did not withhold your son, your only son, from me. Then Abraham lifted up his eyes, and behold, there was a ram just caught in the thick bushes by its horns. So Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up as a burnt offering instead of his son. Abraham called this place Adonai Yarai, and we can call it Jehovah Jireh, the Lord will provide. As it is said today, on the mountain, Adonai will provide. The angel of Adonai called to Abraham a second time from heaven and said, by myself I swear, it is a declaration of Adonai, because you have done this thing, and you did not withhold your son, your only son, I will richly bless you and bountifully multiply your seed like the stars of heaven and like the sand that is on the seashore, and your seed will possess the gate of his enemies. In your seed all the nations of the earth will be blessed, because you obeyed my voice. Then Abraham returned to his young men, and they got up and went together to Beersheba. Then Abraham dwelled in Beersheba. Now it was after these things that it was told to Abraham, look, Milcah has also borne sons to Nahor, your brother, Uz, his firstborn, Buz, his brother, Kemuel, the father of Aram, Chesed, Hazo, Pildash, Yidlaph, and Bethuel. Then Bethuel fathered Rebekah. These 8 Milcah bore to Nahor, Abraham's brother, his concubine, whose name was Rumah, also bore Teba, Gehem, Tahash, and Makkah. So remember, Bethuel fathered Rebekah. We're going to learn about that next week. But I want to pause just for a minute to reflect on this chapter. There's so much in this chapter, and actually, we're going to look at Hebrews 11:17 through 19. Now, this is a New Testament reading. Hebrews 11:17-19 says, "By faith, Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac. Yes, he who had received the promises was offering up his one and only son, the one about whom it was said, though Isaac offspring shall be named for you." And I'm going to come back to some more passages. But this is also definitely type and shadow. Isaac was Abraham's only son from Sarah, and they waited so many years for him to be born, and God had promised them a son. However, as we know, in the meantime, Sarah had given her servant to Abraham, taking it upon herself um, to bring about that supposed promised son. So now they do have the promised son, the one that God had promised to both Sarah and Abraham, and they were very old, but God tested Abraham to test his heart and loyalty, to know that he truly loved God with his entire heart and soul, putting God above everything and everyone in his life, including his family, and especially the one and only son from him and Sarah that had waited almost an entire lifetime for, and know they were not going to have any other children. So this is was a very difficult thing for him. But as we look in Matthew 10:37, Jesus says, "He who loves father or mother more than me isn't worthy of me, and he who loves son or daughter more than me isn't worthy of me." So this was a huge test to see if Abraham loved God above himself and everyone else and would obey as a result. Abraham was obedient. Um, And he followed God's instructions. And, when Isaac asked Abraham, "Where's the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham answered, "God will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering." So Abraham kept his faith because God had promised that from his seed would grow a large nation and that it would come through Isaac. So he believed God was not going to let Isaac perish. And even if he had gone to the point where he did sacrifice Isaac on the altar, God would raise him from the dead. He believed God that much because he actually saw what God had already done for him. So God saw Abraham's heart and that he trusted him and he was being obedient, and he did not allow it to go any further. And so he provided the ram that was caught in the thicket by the horns. And God promised to bless Abraham and multiply his seed. And Abraham loved and trusted God and did not withhold Isaac, his only son that he had from Sarah, his promised son. Later, God did not withhold Yeshua from us, his only begotten son, for us. God gave his only begotten son for all of humanity, and he was the sacrifice lamb to take away the sins of the world. So there's where the type and shadow comes in of Yeshua. And the famous verses in John 3:16-18 are, "For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whosoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. God did not send the Son into the world to condemn the world, but in order that the world might be saved through him. The one who believes in him is not condemned, but whoever does not believe has been condemned already, because he has not put his trust in the name of the one and only Ben and Elohim." So there's where we have our comparison with what Abraham was doing, what God did for us then later through Yeshua. And I mentioned we call it Jehovah Jireh. God will provide. We call him Jehovah Jireh, and in the Messianic Jewish Family Bible, it's Adonai Yireh. The J is not pronounced. It's Adonai Yireh, and that is how it's spelled in this Bible. So we're going to chapter 23, Parashat Kaye Sarah. So we're just going to begin this one. Of course, like I said, it goes into chapter 25 for that Torah portion. And I'll remind when we start next week's reading of this Torah teaching. Abraham purchases Machpelah. Now Sarah's life was 127 years, the years of Sarah's life. Sarah died in Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan, Abraham came to mourn for Sarah and to weep over her. Then Abraham arose from before his dead one and spoke to the sons of Heth, Heth, saying, I am an outsider and a sojourner among you. Give me a grave site among you, so that I may bury my dead before my presence. The sons of Heth answered Abraham, saying to him, Listen to us, my lord. You are a prince of God among us. Bury your dead in the best of our graves. None among us will withhold his grave from you to bury your dead one. Then Abraham got up and bowed down to the people of the land, to the sons of Heth, and spoke with them, saying, If you are of a mind to let me bury my dead from before my presence, listen to me. Plead with Ephron, son of Zophar, on my behalf, that he may give me the cave of Machpelah that belongs to him, that is at the end of his field. At the full price, let him give it to me in your midst for a grave site. Now Ephron was sitting in the midst of the sons of Heth. And Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham in the ears of the sons of Heth, all those who enter the gate of a city, saying, No, my lord, listen to me. The field I hereby give it to you. Also the cave that is in it, I hereby give it to you. In the eyes of the sons of my people, I hereby give it to you. Bury your dead one. Then Abraham bowed down before the people of the land and spoke to Ephron in the ears of the people of the land, saying, But if only you would please listen to me, I hereby give the price of the field, accept it from me, that I bury my dead one there. So Ephron answered Abraham, saying to him, My lord, listen to me. A land worth 400 shekels of silver. What is that between me and you? Bury your dead one. Abraham heard Ephron, so Abraham weighed out to Ephron the silver that he had spoken of in the ears of the sons of Heth, 400 shekels of silver, at the merchant's rate. Now Ephron's field that is in Machpelah, next to Mamre, the field and the cave that is in it, and all the trees that are in the field, and all its surrounding territory, was handed over to Abraham as a purchased possession in the eyes of the son of Heth, before all those who enter the gate of his city. Afterward, Abraham buried Sarah, his wife, in the cave of the field of Machpelah, next to Mamre, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. So the field and the cave that was in it were handed over to Abraham as a gravesite from the sons of Heth.